Laurence Gilman is the former assistant general manager of the Vancouver Canucks, NHL executive with the Leafs, Coyotes, and Jets as well, and he joins us from his Toronto abode. How are you?
I'm well, gentlemen. What could we possibly talk about?
Yeah, let's just start with some of the series around the playoffs, I guess. Or
as a managerial guy, as someone who has participated in these sorts of press conferences, or at least planned for these sorts of press conferences, what did you make of the performance yesterday from Messieurs Rutherford and Alvin?
Well, I think that first and foremost, they were incredibly candid. I think that if you're a Vancouver Canuck fan, you're not saying today that the GM and president of hockey operations are not in touch with where their hockey team is at, what place in the cosmos it's at. I thought they were both excellent, to be honest with you. They didn't hide the ball. They owned up for where the hockey team is at. They explained, fairly. They opened the kimono fairly wide to explain what happened with the team, which I don't think was shocking. But I think that they explained, as I said, where they're at, what they need to do to fix the hockey team, where it's strong, where it's weak. And all in all, I thought it was a very good performance by them.
Was there any time where you thought that's just giving away too much information on what's going on?
Yeah, I wouldn't have disclosed. I mean, listen, Jim Rutherford is far more experienced than I am. He's won 3 Stanley Cups, as we know, and he's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I don't know that I would have shown my hand with respect to how we think we're going to have to improve our center ice position, that being by trade, although I don't think he gave away the secret formula to Coca-Cola when he did that. I think his counterparts, his peers, know that their best route to fix the hockey club is by trade. It's not necessarily by free agency, not particularly in this market, which will ensue on July 1st.
Yeah, that's the debate for a lot of people today is, hey, we all knew a lot of the things that he said, but for him to say them was sort of the next step, right down to the Quinn Hughes and the Hughes brothers quote as well. Everybody knew that to be the case, but to say it is something else.
Well, that one I found incredibly interesting. And, again, Jim Rutherford, this is not his first rodeo.
No.
He's obviously a very veteran general manager, and veteran general managers don't say things off the cuff. My initial thought in hearing that and seeing that was that they've been put on notice by the Hughes camp, whether it's by the player or whether it's by his agent, Pat Brisson, that if they don't turn the fortunes of this hockey club around within a 2-year period when Quinn's contract expires, that he is going to seek to play with his brothers. And, you look at it that they have a year to sort this out, because if they go into the last year of that deal and this guy's not done, and he's told them this is where I'm headed, they're in the same boat that the Calgary Flames were in with Matthew Tkachuk, a few years ago. So I thought it was incredibly interesting. I would not be altogether shocked if they get a phone call from the New Jersey Devils, basically saying, so what's it going to take? And if you're talking to the Devils, they're a team that has a plethora of good young players and prospects. There could be the makings of a deal there. Not that I think it's going to happen anytime soon, but they're a team that does have the assets to make a trade like that.
What about the other side of that coin, Laurence? What do you think? Do they call the Devils at the end of the playoffs? Do they see if they can pry Jack Hughes out of there?
There's no chance that's happening. I think I have a better chance of getting elected Pope than that occurring. If you're Tom Fitzgerald, why would you make that deal? You've got both the brothers. They're both younger, and Quinn is the first one that's going to go to unrestricted free agency. All he has to do is sit back and let the Hughes boys make it happen by themselves over the family barbecue in the summer, and then wait for Quinn's agent to call when the time is right. Or he could make a deal, I suppose, with the Canucks, but we'll see.
Mr. Gilman, you're going to have to change faiths if you want to be a member of the Papabili or the Preferiti going into this conclave.
I didn't say I was looking to change squads. I just said I have a better chance of getting elected Pope than that occurring.
Well done. Well done. So then here's the deal. Who are you targeting in a trade as a top two center? Like, I was surprised to hear him say we're going to need better than that when looking at the UFA center crop. Laurence, do you think that's a commentary on him not fancying his chances of landing one of those UFAs, or just bigger game hunting than the Tavareses, Duchesnes, and Sam Bennett's of the world?
Well, I think he's probably, they've probably been somewhat realistic in what the likelihood is that you're going to get one of those players. And if you're going to get one of those players, you're going to have to overpay to come to you. And I think it's, serving notice that they're open for business. But let's be candid. What are they going to give up to get a number one center iceman if that's what they're pursuing? I mean, they don't have a ton of capital. Like Tom Wielander isn't going to get you a number one center. He might get you a prospect center that could develop into a number one player, a number one center. But if you think that in a first round pick is going to land a bona fide number one center, you're not, you don't know the market for players. They might have to think about trading Thatcher Demko to somebody who's looking for a goaltender for a young center. I don't know. It's not going to be an easy feat for them, that's for sure. And they might need two if they don't sign Pius Suter as well.
Well, that's the thing. If you had Suter and Besser still under contract, one of those two guys could be used as some sort of, bit of padding. But both of those guys are on their way out too. So you don't really, you've even lost some pedigreed players here amongst your top five scorers.
Well, and if they're not, they're going to sign deals that have trade protection for them of some nature. So it's not like you're going to sign them. They're going to sign with you and turn around and get traded the next day.
No.
Hey, with a managerial ear, what did you make of the explanation about Miller and Pettersson, all that went wrong and what they were forced to do?
I applaud them for their candor. The question I probably would have asked if I were one of you people. How did you let it get to that point? Why did it go on for so long? Was there not something that you could have done to intervene before you had to, go nuclear, so to speak, and make a trade that you clearly didn't want to make? It's that one still baffles me. I don't, and he didn't, and obviously he said he wasn't going to disclose everything. There has to have been a little bit more that went on. That's probably a little salacious. But I don't know. I mean, I thought he was candid and forthright. Clearly they had a problem in their dressing room. It spilled over, taking what he said to heart, spilled over into the other players. And ultimately they had to get rid of their problem rather than solve it.
I don't remember the two of you, Mike and you, being very critical of
that candid in a year-end presser.
Well,
you can hear some of that out of Gilly's mouth.
But you guys were players first. Like you guys defended your players to the ends of the world. Like I don't remember really anything coming close to a sharp, pointed criticism. The odd bit of realism of that guy could maybe stand to do this better, but nothing too pointed like we've seen with Pettersson over and over and over again. Can the relationship be saved here between now and July 1st when that no move clause kicks in? Because they quintupled down the other day or yesterday and continued down the. Now they softened it at the end by saying, hey, he's been in here every day since the season ended. I mean, that's 3 days and is working hard. But that was the only give, really. Is Elias Pettersson going to be able to look these guys in the eyes and feel like he's cared about it at this point?
Well, the stakes are pretty high for Elias Pettersson. I mean, he's a proud guy.
Yeah.
He's not going to want to go through this again. I can't imagine the fun meter was very high for him this year. So, he's got bigger fish to fry. He's got to turn his career around so that he is, again, looked upon as one of the top centers in the game. So I don't think the parties have the luxury of liking or disliking each other. Although I did note as well that they were giving platitudes to JT Miller walking out the door, yet they were critical of their own guy. And a lot of that criticism is deserved. He didn't. It's clear because they've said it enough times in 17 different languages that whatever the reason, whether it was injuries or whether it was work ethic, he didn't put the work in the summertime and clearly didn't come in to camp in good enough condition to perform at a high level. And like a player, like Jeremy Swayman in Boston who missed his training camp, there's an analogy there. if you're not at your best at the beginning, you're falling behind fast, and it's impossible to catch up through the season. And I didn't think Pettersson was as bad as people said he was for the whole year, and I definitely think he was getting better as the season went on. And whatever happened, whatever was going on with between him and JT Miller clearly impacted his performance.
You remain a Elias believer then, Laurence?
I do. Players like that don't come along very often. And again, I've said it a bunch of times with you guys. Everybody's got problems. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got problems. Either solve your problem or get rid of your problem. Based on where they're at, I wouldn't be getting rid of centers at this point in time. I would be, as Jim Rutherford said, focusing their energy on acquiring center icemen right now.
Yeah. With the managerial, I think it was a bit of a clunky explanation from Rutherford because he said Elias is always going to get his points when really Elias didn't get his points this past year. But with the managerial year, did you understand what Rutherford was getting at with regards to the improvements Elias has to make, the changes Elias has to make if he's going to be a centerpiece player on a
I think what he was basically saying was they want to see him compete harder in both ends of the rink. Although I do think he's a pretty good defensive hockey player when he wants to be. But I think, and he drew the analogy to Steve Yzerman, when Scotty Bowman came into Detroit and changed the way, his game was and, led to all those championships. I think it was clearly a shot over the bow to the player that we need you to come in and give a rat's ass meter needs to be at a much, much higher level on a daily basis than it has been this past year.
It's sort of the curse of having sipped from the holy chalice, isn't it? I mean, Rutherford has seen Sidney Crosby in action, and you can never put the genie back in the bottle having seen that. You just want everybody to be that.
Boy, there's a lot of catechism today for
yes, true. Yes.
Jewish guest. I apologize, Laurence. We're
but after having been around Crosby, the standard is pretty high for these two.
Well, and it also gives him credibility, though, when he talks to players and says, I witnessed it with Sidney Crosby every day. And that's why he's won 3 Stanley Cups. And that's why he's had more points per game seasons than any player in the history of the National Hockey League, including Wayne Gretzky. It gives him the ability and the right to look a player in the eye and say that and have it land, and with impact.
I want to put something to you, Laurence, and I'm going to read directly from a tweet that I received just moments ago because we always talk about this in media, but I don't think we always do a great job of explaining the importance of a practice facility, and in part because it's typically a place we don't get to go and we don't see and know everything that goes on there. But I just got a tweet. What's the big deal on a practice facility? Don't they have everything they need at Rogers Arena? And don't the players mostly live around downtown? Why ask them to drive to Surrey or wherever when everything is already in one place? Edify us, please.
Well, a practice facility serves a lot of purposes. Number one, I look at the Toronto Maple Leafs have as good a practice facility as anybody out there, and you have a commercial kitchen in it and a team of chefs that are pumping out healthy gourmet meals to players and staff. 3 squares a day when they're not playing NHL games. You have state-of-the-art facility, in terms of gym equipment. All kinds of things that you simply can't have in an arena because you just don't have the dedicated space, because an arena is a dedicated footprint. You have multiple sheets of ice where you can send injured players out on one surface and run a team practice on the other, or you can send the power play off to work on a different ice surface and have your penalty killing, work on another, or have your young players working. It's a place that the players, can go, and it's not the arena. Like it breaks the monotony of going to the same place every day. There are only 2 teams in the National Hockey League that don't have practice facilities, and that's the Canucks and the Calgary Flames. And that's going to be rectified for the Flames when they build their new arena. People, in Vancouver, with all due respect, don't understand it because they haven't seen it. Some of these practice facilities like Montreal's in Brossard, Quebec, it's unbelievable. And it's also a community asset, I would add, because it draws people there. But having a practice facility is a huge, huge deal. And not just hockey, in every sport, basketball, football, they all have, practice facilities, one type or another.
It's too bad you don't have that plot in Dunbar anymore, Gilman. There's a development opportunity here.
He touched on something that was pretty, poignant. There aren't enough rinks in Vancouver.
That is true.
There's never been enough rinks in Vancouver. And, it's no small feat. Like, to build a practice facility could be $30 million without talking about the land. That's a big, big venture. But it's also a recruiting tool as well. So it is something, easy for me to spend the Aquilini's money, but it is something that the Canucks have had. It's been long overdue. Let's put it that way.
All right. We'll look for the white smoke between now and next week. Thank you for that.
Just in case you get the call. You never know.
Don't hold your breath, gentlemen.